Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Schott here with your weather update on this edition of Nate at 8. And coming up, well, a lot of the same in many ways is what we had for today ahead for your Monday. But past that is when we're noticing more changes as we do extend throughout the week, which overall favors much warmer temperatures, especially with respect to today and tomorrow, and also favors more precipitation. But this time around, those warmer temperatures, most of it will be in terms of rain. So that's what we're going to be breaking down for this edition of Nate at 8. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. So again, coming up, discussing Monday, bitterly cold temperatures, dry conditions initially for the start of this coming week, and before we see that next round of precipitation arrive as rain, and out ahead of that rain, again, a warm-up. It will be noticed here over the next few days, more so starting Tuesday and then on as we look ahead into the latter part of this week. Starting off with temperatures now, we have a couple things to note with respect to today. The current temperatures now are falling into the single digits, and we're not dropping much tonight, but when we shave off just a few degrees from temperatures which are already close to 10 degrees and equates to those lows in the single digits. Again, we're not cooling too much throughout the night, but we are likely anticipating, we've already fallen the single digits some locations, but those still in the teens can fall in the single digits, and those already in the single digits, shaving off a couple more degrees from what we're at now. Again, not too much cooler, but this does take us in the single digits. And this is the first time that we have seen temperatures in the single digits in December since 2022. And a lot of these cold statistics, dealing with the wind chills, which are in the negative single digits today, dealt with temperatures in the single digits, highs into the teens. That was back in 2023. But these negative wind chills, single digit lows, the last time we had this kind of cold in December was back in 2022. And you may remember this because it was right around Christmas. So back in 2022, starting on the 23rd, continuing until the 26th, we had that period of not only frigid temperatures, wind chills got down to around negative 30. And it was very windy and frigid. You may remember that frigid, windy Christmas period we had back in 2022. And what we're dealing with now, obviously, we're not getting anywhere near negative 30 for wind chill. This isn't as brutal as that, but this was the coldest since then for us here in the Ohio Valley in terms of December, right? So it is, this is pretty, I wouldn't say, record breaking, obviously, but, nonetheless, of some significance when it comes to statistics. This is not common for us here in the month of December. And these single digits in terms of days, I discussed those highs, this high temperature, they were in the teens. They were in the teens today. Out of the past 20 years, we have a possible 620 days in December. Well, today marked only the 11th out of 620 days where highs were in the teens in December. The same statistic with those lows in the single digits was the 13th day out of a possible 620. So that's another way to put into perspective of just how rare it is for us to deal with this kind of cold during this month, right? Obviously this isn't as significant by the time January rolls around, but for December, this is not typical for us here into the Ohio Valley. It's certainly more significant that we're dealing with temperatures this cold. And again, wind chills, which are even the negative single digits, down to -8, the coldest registered for today at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Negatives across the board. South Fork, Columbiana down to -1, all the way again to -8 at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And the unfortunate news is that I do think that while we may not get quite to that extent, we're probably not far from it overnight into tomorrow morning, as these wind speeds, they do diminish, but notice we still maintain this wind about 5 to 10, gusts up to 20. So our winds aren't calming. We don't have those wind gusts to the extent of today, but still with that slight breeze in place Monday into Tuesday, these wind chills still remain very much a factor, especially considering temperatures in the single digits. We are still likely into the negative single digits. Again, I think that overall, for a lot of us, we may be just a degree or two warmer, but we don't really notice that, right? It's going to feel very similar to how it felt for today. Again, as we go throughout Monday, from the negative single digits, the single digits is the range where a lot of us will end up. And when we're talking about a few degrees, a couple degrees difference, it's really not noticeable to us. It's going to feel very similar to how it felt for today again on Monday. So then the question is, when can it start to feel different, right? When can it start to feel warmer? Well, we're going to have to hold off likely, not Tuesday morning, all the way Tuesday afternoon. So this is when we'll actually notice a warm up is Tuesday afternoon. So up until Tuesday afternoon, really just look for it feeling a lot of the same as it felt for today up until Tuesday afternoon. And this will be more of a noticeable increase in those temperatures, wind chills. That's when we'll see, while it obviously still very cold, this is when we'll actually notice it, a little bit of a warm up, at least Tuesday afternoon. Wind chills will be back closer to 20, if not just in the 20s, as temperatures are trying to make their way back into the 30s into Tuesday afternoon. I do think with the snow cover, we may struggle to get in the 30s, but we could at least get back closer to that 30-degree mark by Tuesday afternoon. And that really just starts that continuous warming trend as we go all the way into Thursday then. So live radar had some flurries with us. That's the extent of any precipitation. We're going to be looking at some dry conditions now, even those are tapering off as we go into the overnight hours. Of course, coming off of snowfall totals, which looking at, this are reports a lot of some of you, these were reports from the National Weather Service last night in combination with reports that some of you had chimed in. So thank you very much for sending in some snowfall reports. We saw in combination with more reports that came in today from the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh, it was anywhere from 3 inches up to almost 8 inches. So that 3 to 8 inch range is where a lot of us ended up. Right within that range. Now, a lot of us were, that 3 to 4 inch. A lot of that was those lower amounts towards Tuscarawas, Columbiana County, and those higher amounts then further south. We did see quite a bit of high amounts, not too much further to the south, though, right? We saw some of those higher amounts even reach into portions north of I-70. But in general, that 3 to 8 inch range is where that was across the area. Now, as we look ahead for tonight, obviously not anticipating any more snow accumulation, but just one thing to watch for is that we still can get some slick spots. So these conditions, road conditions, are a lot better tonight with respect to last night. But we can notice just again that some of that this lingering water, slush on these roads, it can refreeze. So it's just something to watch for. I would still be careful, use some caution tomorrow morning, as still anticipating at least some slick spots. I assume, obviously, I don't have eyes on all roads across the area, but I'm sure there could still be some back roads that could be generally still slick. On the grand scheme of things, though, it's more of, slick spots. Definitely still keep an eye on them as we go, not only tomorrow morning, but we can see this throughout tomorrow as well. We will likely have to hold off until more Tuesday afternoon that we start to see even those leave us. Why? To the temperatures. It's cold. If we see these temperatures back further in the 20s into the 30s, then the salt that crews are placing down is much more effective, and it's less effective when temperatures are in the teens, single digits, and it's going to be harder still to get rid of those slick spots entirely, even through the daytime tomorrow. So I think that, we could still see some slick spots even into tomorrow night. But once Tuesday afternoon rolls around, we should see a lot less of even slick spots with us during that time period. Notice it is quiet here, mostly cloudy skies Monday, seeing a little more sunshine Tuesday. So certainly a little more sunshine in combination with those temperatures getting closer to that freezing mark. Again, I think that Futurecast could be overdoing these temperatures some. We do see this, that when we have this snow cover, that models are trying to throw these temperatures warmer than what we actually get. So, it's to take it with a grain of salt. I think that we could still struggle to get in the 30s Tuesday afternoon with the snow cover, but nonetheless, we're still getting back closer to it, right? Further into the 20s, some sunshine, and that certainly can help clear out any of those lingering slick spots on our roads as we go throughout Tuesday. But this is a quiet, really first stretch of of the week ahead. We're not likely to see any precipitation Monday, Tuesday, and likely staying dry even going into Wednesday. Austin, good evening. Today was freezing cold. I measured a total of 4 inches of snow for Wetzel. Thanks for the report there, Austin. Thank you for tuning in as always. Dan saying Burr, a good way to sum up this edition of 8 at 8. That's for sure. That's the name of the story here for not only today, but for tomorrow as well. You know, a lot of the same when it comes to those temperatures and wind chills. Not looking forward to the cold weather tomorrow. Yeah, Austin, again, feeling very similar to how it felt for today. Still too cold, Albert saying. And we got some good news, Albert, coming your way here in just a minute once we get to it. That warm up we're going to get to in your 9+1 day forecast. John asking what was Moundsville, and I'd have to look to see if there was a report sent into Moundsville specifically. Those were some of the reports I had sending in last night. But if you head over to the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh, dig through their list, you may see an amount there of someone that reported from Moundsville. But I didn't have a report from Moundsville for last night, unfortunately, to pass on to you there, John. Renee, yeah, that's it. The Burr emojis. Make sure to leave your sinks dripping tonight. Good advice there, Chris. And what's the temp in Florida, huh? What's the temp in Florida? What's the forecast for Christmas? Brian, we'll get into that as well in your 9+1 day forecast to start to look ahead towards that Christmas day. So as we do jump into it, again, we'll start to jump into next week now. So our rain and snow outlook, again, it's quiet for the first half of this coming week. By Thursday, then, is our return to precipitation. Now, temperatures are warm enough that our precipitation type is going to be rain. And we'll deal with quite a bit of it falling likely Thursday. It's going to be more of a washout likely for Thursday. By Friday, though, this precipitation looks to exit, and we'll see some dry conditions return, only to have the potential for some more rain showers going into next weekend that I think we can see return. Now, like I mentioned, temperatures, they're ramping up. And you ready? Here it is. These temperatures are really picking up. And what a difference we're going to have from Monday into Thursday. Yeah, all the way closer to 50 degrees by Thursday. That's going to be a pretty strong cold front passage. Temperatures do drop off, and we'll see the high temperature for Friday's likely at midnight. And that's when we're still in the 30s. But our afternoon high, which is more, good representation to put there for high on Friday. The afternoon temperatures Friday are in the 20s, but the technical high is probably coming at midnight, Thursday night into Friday morning, when temperatures are still in the 30s. So, but it's those temperatures are dropping throughout the day Friday, then rebounding right back in the 40s, and we'll look to hover around the 40s there likely for not only next week, but even into that following week. So there, next Wednesday, of course, the early preview there, Christmas Eve, and no big cool down for Christmas Eve. So in some unfortunate news, these temperatures are still in the 40s and not foreseeing a whole lot of precipitation around next Wednesday, Christmas Eve. So it's unfortunate news for our white Christmas chances. We're melting what we have now as we go throughout this week, and we're going to need some more snow falling before Christmas Day. And right now, unfortunately, I don't see much chances there for that going into the middle of next week. Unfortunately, past this week. Hopefully we get a Christmas miracle. Maybe we could sneak something in Christmas Day. If not, then maybe at least, getting some snow between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. But, it's the snow just a little too early, I think, for a good chance for white Christmas this coming week. This milder pattern just ruining it, the chance for us. If we just had these colder temperatures to keep more of the snow cover around, and maybe we could still have a little bit at least going into Christmas Day from what we just saw. But unfortunately, we picked up a lot of snow across the area, but this pattern is going to eat up a lot of it, especially once we get that rain. Rain always eats up a lot of that snow cover. And, well, obviously temperatures near 50 will do that, but especially the rain, especially on Thursday. And that will make for some foggy conditions, rain, snow melt. It's going to be turning quite foggy likely with that rain and temperatures in the 40s, if not 50s, and the snow melt. Watch for it. It'll be probably really foggy on Thursday when we do get this kind of setup, yield some foggy conditions. So yes, unfortunately, Brian, does not look like a good white Christmas forecast looking ahead going into the second half of the second half of next week. So your 9+1 day forecast again for this week. The warm up is on its way following your Monday. Tuesday into Wednesday, temperatures are climbing back closer to that freezing mark Tuesday, likely above it Wednesday, and then all the way towards that 50-degree mark on Thursday. Friday is a bit of a cool down, but it's brief. Temperatures likely back in the 40s, and by the weekend, that's when we have a chance for some more rain showers returning. And don't foresee a whole lot of precipitation around going into the middle of next week, which of course we need. We need some snow, but to have that white Christmas, but unfortunately don't see too much precipitation around at that time period. But we can see temperatures maybe start to trend a little cooler into Christmas Day. We'll see. Hopefully we can at least get to a little more festive temperatures maybe there with highs back in the 30s. But right now it doesn't look like a whole lot of snow coming our way, at least going into Christmas Day. Asa says, want to give lots of prayers for everyone in Australia at Bondi Beach. Shocked and upset to hear that terrorist attack happened on the first day of Hanukkah. And I have to look into that, Asa. I haven't heard of that, but that sounds horrible, and definitely lots of thoughts and prayers, everyone affected there. But I have not looked into that or heard that yet. I'll have to do that. Been very busy in the weather department as of recent, that's for sure. Tracking snow and very cold temperatures, digging into some statistics on these cold temperatures, which again, quite rare for us here in the Ohio Valley this time of the year, in December specifically, that we deal with temperatures single digits, wind chills negative, in the negative readings, and also highs in the teens, and we're all getting it on the same day. So definitely out of the norm for us for this time of the year. And well, tomorrow we just repeat it before those temperatures do climb back up. So if you don't like this real cold again next week, it's good news, right? Past Monday, this coming week, it's good news that temperatures are climbing back up, and don't look to see anything near as cold as today and tomorrow. Once we get past it, looking ahead, even going into next week, do not foresee temperatures in the teens anytime soon once we get past your Monday. So if you don't like the cold, it's got to get through one more day, and then not as bad as we look ahead into next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can catch me coming up News 9 at 10 on Fox 9 News 9 tonight, which will air not quite at 11. It'll be after, of course, the NFL football game tonight. So whenever the football game ends there on NBC, News 9 tonight will air, so you can catch me later on tonight as well. I'll be in tomorrow for that next edition of Nate at 8, so enjoy the rest of your evening and weekend. Try to stay warm. We'll discuss more cold tomorrow coming up on that next edition of Nate at 8. Have a good night.